Hello there. Welcome to this week's report by foreign investors on India. We look at a number of developments, including the replacement of older power plants in the country, a World Bank study, ministers' call for increased public private participation in India's healthcare sector. We start with Mixo Das from Nomura giving us an insight into the equities market in India following the demonetization that was announced November 8. Nomura believes the demonetization issues or short of cash supplies in Indian market will be resolved by the second quarter of next year. It is a short-term pain but a long-term gain, says Nomura. Following Nomura, we will have a Ranjit Mehta from PhD Chambers, giving an outline of PhD Chambers' plans to work with companies in Singapore and Southeast Asia. PhD has held its first India-Singapore Investment Summit recently here. We again will hear from Mr. Achal Agarwal of Kimberly-Clark. Mr. Agarwal and Kimberly-Clark are both very bullish on the Indian markets. They have continually studied the market trends based on newborn babies, women's requirements, and are working on the corporate social front by helping repair government school toilets in the country. Let's first hear from Mr. Mixo Das in the next clip.
So India, like I said, is our top overweight market at this point, and it's largely because we think that the effects of this demonetization process will be transitory, and our economists are seeing growth returning to its previous path within 2 quarters. So if that is the case, then the market will quickly look through this, because equity markets price earnings over a long-term time period. If the longer-term outlook is actually getting better, which we think it is, then equity should be overlooking transitory slowdowns. And add to that the fact that with this sharp shock, market valuations had come down quite a bit. And that essentially gave us a very attractive entry point into a market which we think is a structural growth story.
There's 25 to 40% drop in property prices in the major metros.
There will be some sectors that will be much more adversely impacted, and I think property is one of the most impacted ones.
Right, thanks.
But if you look at the equity market, right, property is not even there. There's probably like 1 or 2% of the entire equity market is property stocks.
See, we are here in Singapore for India Investment Singapore Summit 2016. The focus of this summit has been on bringing investment into India and also creating synergies between Indian industry and Singapore industries. Ultimately, it is about the engagement, because the business has to be done between people to people. So we need to create more synergies. We need to connect with the people, with the substance, with the spirit, so that people start doing businesses between these two countries. And we are very happy with the response that Singapore industries have given to us. And we hope to come here quite often and create business opportunities for Indian companies as well as for Singapore companies in India. Thank you.
Help desk.
We have also come to know that many Singapore companies who come to India, they need a kind of support in terms of having the investment processes to be created, or to really guide them for that. So PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry will facilitate this facility, and we will be really keen to help the companies who are coming from Singapore into India for doing their business.
After Dr. Ranjit, we will hear Mr. Agarwal, the winner of CNBC 2016 Businessman of the Year Award. Agarwal has planned out expansion for Kimberly-Clark in India based on demand from consumer market segment.
So we are very bullish about India because in our business, we look at the number of babies, and India clearly is the country with the largest number of babies born every year. There are 25 million babies born, and those babies need to be diapered, and therefore there's a huge potential market in India. Currently, there are few babies being diapered, and therefore the market is relatively small, but in time we have no doubt that this is very convenient for mothers, and it's also hygienic, and therefore more and more diapering will be done. And therefore I have no doubt that with the potential that India has, we'll have a big business in the future. And in Kimberly-Clark, we are certainly making sure that we make the right investments in India. We're pacing them in line with the growth of the market, and we think about India as a very big market in the future. We do have a factory in Pune, which is currently producing products. We continue to invest in that factory. We're putting new lines in that factory, and I would expect that with the market expansion in the future, that we would need to think about more locations and more lines in India, because clearly the potential of that market is very, very strong. We believe that we should be engaged with the community in which we work, and India is no exception. We have a strong program called Toilet Change Lives, which in line with Swachh Bharat is all about ensuring that we reduce open defecation. We explored a number of options, including building toilets, but what we hit on, I thought, was something which was very, very relevant, which was that while 90% of government schools have toilet, only about 40% of them are actually used. And therefore we saw a big opportunity that if we repaired the other toilets which are not being used, that was low-hanging fruit. We could get those into operation, and our children in the schools who are unable to use toilets would get the opportunity to use toilets, and girls who come to those schools when they have their periods would be able to find a safe place in which they can go and change, and therefore not miss schools during those days that they have their period. I think that's really important, because girls going to school on a regular basis and not dropping out is vital. Our own statistics show that in the schools that we have implemented some changes in terms of the toilets becoming operational, attendance rates of both boys and girls have gone up, and this is really a source of great satisfaction. Also, since they are young, the students go back home, they've got used to using toilets, and they start to bring about a mindset shift in their parents, because they start demanding toilets at home too, which leads to more demand in terms of the parents responding and getting toilets into their homes, and so the message spreads. So we believe that we would want to continue to do this work in India. Plenty of work to be done, and we hope that other people will join in terms of repairing toilets in government schools.
India and US has signed a $20 million letter of intent under the US-India Clean Energy Financing Initiative. The fund will be starting up a series of preparation reports for setting up of solar power panels and other clean energy network in the country. The US-based overseas private investment corporation is involved in this initiative of clean energy in India. Minister Jitendra Singh has called for public-private participation scheme in the healthcare development projects. He noted that most of the healthcare projects would be taken by the public sector, but private sector should not leave it away from these developments. Telemedicine, he mentioned, is one of the main private sector's initiatives that could reach healthcare services to every corner of the country. 1/3 of the population, he said, has no proper hospital bed for the sick. The World Bank has placed India's energy efficiency market's value at 1.6 lakh crore. It is part of the country's ongoing efforts to reduce CO2 emissions, noted the bank. India has embarked on a CO2 control mission by deciding to replace coal-fired plants that are more than 25 years old. These again is another major thrust by Indian government to control CO2 emission across the country. The country's largest power management group will decommission 11,000 megawatt of coal-fired power plants. The cost is 50,000 crore. We close this report with WNS, India's largest IT group, announcing that WNS Tracked TM solutions will be used in robotic automation process. These solutions will help its clients manage complex business processes, said WNS. We thank you and will present another report next week.